Rise and shine, and welcome to another episode of Life with Purpose. Today is August 21st, 2022, and it is 5:51 a.m. As y'all can see, the Father has done it again. He will not allow me to sleep. He woke me up at about, I want to say, like 5:30 and began to pour into my spirit. I just love when he does that. I love when we have these most intimate moments, and it normally happens either at night as I'm falling asleep or in the morning when he wakes me up. So this morning he just gave me a word, y'all. A word for my very own self of something that I'm dealing with personally, and then also a word for the channel. So, of course, I had to get on here and make a video early this morning. Sure did. Didn't even make my tea. I just got straight to making this video. And so this morning, he just put in my spirit sacrifice. And I laid there and I kind of just sat with that for a moment. I'm just like, sacrifice. Okay. All right. What next? What do you have to say, Father? And so I tried to go to sleep because I was just like, as when I'm in a moment, when he's in a moment of waking me up and I'm just like, just talk to me later, I'm tired. Oh no, he's very persistent. He gonna make sure that I get up. And he spoke again, so I reposition myself, get comfortable, try to fall asleep again. And he said, sacrifice. Sacrifice, sacrifice. And he just would not leave me alone about this sacrifice, y'all. So I'm like, okay, Father, clearly you want to have a conversation at 5:30 in the morning. So let's conversate. What do you have to say? What's the word? And so he said, everything great that you do in life will require sacrifice. And he began to just have this conversation with me, how we see so many, celebrities sacrificing their souls, their families, all types of craziness, all for the sake of fame and money, just for that small glimpse of what a wealthy life looks like. And I use quotation when I say that because we know that anything the devil gives us is not permanent. It's an illusion. And he will use that very thing that you so desire so much in your life. He'll use that very thing against you. Oh, well, just oh, well, you want that so bad? Give me this and you're going to have it. And sometimes when we want something so bad, we're willing to deny even our own selves for that thing. And I feel, thinking about that, I feel that's why the Father has taken me through so much, especially when it comes to materialism, especially when it comes to my finances. In this season of my life, he's literally put me in a situation where I have no choice but to depend on him solely. That's it. I'm in a position where I can't get a job, where I don't have it all financially. Moments of struggle, intense moments of struggle is what I'm going through in this moment, y'all. Intense moments of struggle. And, in the States, I've never had to endure anything like this in my life because in the States, it's so easy to just go make some quick money. It's never a reason that you should be broke if you live in the United States of America because there is 1,001 billion ways to hustle. There is always a way to hustle in the States. So I was never in a position where I was just dead broke without having the ability to be able to go out there and get some money. So I was okay, for the most part. I was able to, maintain life, take care of my kids, do all the things that I needed to do as a mother and a woman. So moving here to Africa, it's just been such a battle because it's a completely different continent. And it's kind of learning the system. Not that you can't hustle and make money here, but when you're new to this country, you have to learn how the system works. And so I'm still in that process of learning how the system works. And at the same time, not really learning because I'm kind of secluded on this mountain. As y'all can see, the beautiful background. And it might be a little noisy. I don't know if you guys can hear the noise this morning, but it's a lot of chatter happening down below us because I live on the top of the mountain. So Ghana's just waking up. Everybody's, getting to the local market, setting up shop for the day. So you hear a lot of talking going on. And I don't know if you guys can hear that. Not so much so because I live on the top of the mountain. So it's not even like I'm a part of society where on a daily basis where I can kind of get to know the hustle and bustle of how things work because I'm secluded, So unless I am filming or I have something going on, I'm home. And so being home means being secluded. It means being separated. It means being set apart. It means spending time with the Father. It means just being in its own bubble of what the Father has given me. And so I always feel like that where I live is like an incubation for me. When you think of a baby that's born premature and they have to go to be in an incubator because they're not strong enough to survive outside of that on their own. That's what I feel like in this moment of living where I live. I feel like I'm in an incubator. I feel like the Father just has me like in this perfect environment, and positioning me to set me up for greatness because he's completely separated me from the world and placed me here. And so he's doing something in me, y'all. I don't always understand it. It don't always make sense to me. Just recently, what I was going through made no sense to me. Like, I was getting so upset. I'm not even gonna lie. I was like, Father, what is this? Like, I was crying, boo-hooing, having a whole conversation with him. What have you done? Just like, what's going on? What's happening? I don't understand this. Like, just really in this intense conversation with him because I did not understand the situation. And so it wasn't until this morning that he brought me revelation. And a part of that revelation is this word of sacrifice. Sacrifice. I sacrificed, being with my family. I sacrificed being with my kids. I sacrificed having the ability to have money at the tips of my hand. I sacrificed comfortability. I sacrificed basically my whole entire existence to move upon the Father's word because he gave me a word. And that word was to move to Africa. Followed by promises. And so when he gave me that word, all I heard was the word and all I seen was the promises, the end. I never considered the in-between of what I might have to go through before I get to that promise. I'm like the Israelites in the wilderness right now, where I thought that I was going from the word that he gave me straight to the promise. No in between. I felt like I had been through everything I needed to go through when I was in the States, that when I arrived here, that it was just going to be my promise. And I was sadly mistaken because when I got here, I didn't see the promise, all of the promise, should I say, because it has been a huge blessing here, a huge blessing. And when I tell you he's opened doors and he's continuing to open doors at his own speed. So it's not like it's been a moment of stagnation for me. It's been very consistently evolving and becoming better and better, but it's just not happening all at once. And it's not happening as quickly as I would like it to happen. But again, he says, sacrifice. Sacrifice. What are you willing to sacrifice for the sake of the kingdom? What are you willing to give up for the sake of the kingdom? And I can remember all the way back to the book of Genesis 22 when Abraham comes on the scene. Actually, he starts off as Abram. When Abram comes on the scene. And as the story plays out and as we read further into Genesis, we find that Abraham is met with the challenge because the Father speaks a word for him. And this time when he speaks a word to Abraham, he gives him a word without a promise. See, we have to understand that when the Father gives a word, a promise is not always attached to that word that he gives us. Sometimes followed by that word is a test. It's not a promise, but a test on the other end, right? And so the Father gives Abram a word and he says, take your son. Now, if you're not familiar with the story of Abraham as we know him now, he didn't have any kids. His wife was barren, and they just, you know, never conceived children. And he was very old, like about 70-something years old, y'all. His wife was about just as equally old. And so they, you know, desire kids naturally. Any married couple would want to have children, and any man would want his legacy to be carried on. So, of course, he would want kids. And so the father promised them that they would have kids. And, you know, eventually that promise was fulfilled. And Abraham and Sarah, which was his wife, did have a child, and it was a boy. And so now fast forward back to the word. The father spoke a word to Abram, and he said, take your son to the mountain, and I want you to sacrifice him to me. Abraham probably thinks he's going crazy. You know, we don't see that in the story. We don't see that in the story, but if I could just think of logically how a person would feel, any human with emotion and feeling would feel, that there was some wrestle in that. That he just didn't happily get up and be like, oh, okay, great, Father, you want me to sacrifice my son to you? This is fantastic. Let me leave tomorrow. I'm pretty sure it was a lot of resistance, a lot of doubt and questioning. Am I hearing from the Father? You telling me to sacrifice my child? Like, you know, this can't be you. This got to be the devil. So I imagine it was a lot that Abraham had to deal with emotionally before he got to the point of saying, okay, Father, I'm going to be obedient to you. Because that moment did come. And Abraham said, okay, I'll be obedient. And so he didn't tell his wife anything, but he took his only son that they had together, that he had waited so many years to get, like years on top of years. He waited basically his whole life for this child. And now here he is, being obedient to the Father, taking this child to sacrifice him to the Father. And so he gathers his son and some of his servants, and he sets to go to the top of the mountain to prepare an altar to sacrifice his son. And as he gets to the top of this mountain with his son in preparation to sacrifice him, and, you know, his son even looks at him at one point and says, well, what's going on? Because where's the sacrifice? I see we got the wood and, you know, all the things that we need. You up here, you building an altar. But where's the sacrifice? His son is even like confused, perplexed. Like, this doesn't make any sense, Dad. What's happening? And so Abram looks at his son and he said that the Father will provide the sacrifice. He will provide the sacrifice. And so he then bounds his son up with rope and places his son on the altar and prepares, and then takes the knife in preparation to slaughter his son. And the Father sends an angel to intervene in that moment. And the angel speaks from heaven. He didn't come down, but he was in heaven. He spoke from heaven and told Abram, stop. It was a joke. Ha ha. Don't sacrifice your son. This was just a test. A test. The angel didn't say it was a test, but I'm saying it was just a test. I'm just inserting that real quick. And so the angel says, stop. Don't sacrifice your son. See, the sacrifice has already been provided. And when Abraham turns around, he sees the ram caught in the bush. And he takes the ram and, you know, sacrifices up to the Father. And so in that moment, Abram was tested. Are you going to love even your son more than me? Because, see, in this life, we can't love anything more than the Father. Because when you love anything more than the Father, it becomes an idol. It becomes a God in your life. And it's so easy to turn things, you know, materialistic things, people, you know, situations, circumstances into your God without you even realizing. You may not even realize that you're doing that. But when anything holds that much importance and that much value in your life, it becomes head over your life. No longer is the Father head. That thing that you're valuing more than you're valuing him becomes head over your life. And so when the Father is bringing you somewhere great, when he has somewhere for you to go in life, it's going to require sometimes intense sacrifice, because he wants to know and make sure that you don't love anything more than you love him. I don't even care if it's your own kids. Look at me. I can't even love my own kids more than I love the Father. I can't love my own kids more than I'm willing to listen to his word. I can't love my own kids more than I'm willing to follow him, to lay down my own life to pick his up. It can be nothing in your heart that takes his place. Not your family, not your kids, not your vehicle, not your gambling habit, not your drug addiction, not your insecurity, not your temper. Nothing. There should be nothing in your life that has that much power and control and authority over your life. And why? Why does he want to ensure that there's nothing in your life that is over him? Number one, because it's a clear open door for the devil to come in, because that very thing that you love so much, he will use it against you. He's on this earth, you know, to see what he can do, to see what he can use against you, to see what he can bring to the Father to accuse you of. Also that he can test you to cause you to fall. Because after all, just like the Father's out here in this world trying to gain souls, so is the devil. Anything that he feels that he can use against you to bring to the Father to test you, he's going to do that, because that's, you know, he wants to gain souls. So that's why it's so important to follow the word of the Father. That when he gives you a word to sacrifice whatever that thing is that he's causing you to sacrifice, that you follow it. And guess what? If there's no sacrifice in your life, then the promise ain't that great. Because followed by a great sacrifice is also a great promise on that other end, and also a great test. So regardless of whether it's a test or a promise on the end of that thing, it's always ultimately going to lead to the promise. Because if he's testing you, it's for a reason. It's because he has something great for you to do. So the greater the sacrifice, the greater the test, the bigger the promise. Sometimes we don't always understand. After this word, hopefully you will. You know, when we're going through things and it just don't make no sense. But we're not called to always understand. Everything isn't supposed to always make sense. When he gives a word, we just have to follow that word. Follow that word. Pray over that thing. Make sure it's the voice of the Father, because you know the voice of the enemy is very real too. So pray over that thing when you receive a word, and just make sure that it's the voice of the Father. And when you know for sure that it is the voice of the Father and he's requiring you to make a great sacrifice, follow that word. Follow that word, whatever the sacrifice is. Because the Father knows what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing. And when you're following him, you will never fall. Even if it feels like you done fell, you know, rolled around on the ground, rolled down the mountain and back up again. It feels like you done been dragged through the mud, you know, spat on, stomped on. Like you really go through it. It is no easy task when the Father has something great lined up for your life. When he has something great lined up for your life, you know that that sacrifice is not about to be a walk in the park at all, period. Like things is about to get crazy. In my situation, you know, I've been just really praying over my finances lately, y'all, because it's been such a struggle being here and not having access to, you know, money the way that I'm used to having access to money. And so this was a sacrifice all on its own for me. Outside of leaving my family and my kids to come here, but just not having the ability to have money at my fingertips the way that I'm used to was a huge sacrifice to me. It was a huge leap of faith, because I have no choice but to depend on the Father for every single dime that flows into my hands. And that's not easy at all. It's not easy to just be in a place of total solitude, dependent upon the Father for literally everything financially. I've never been in a position in my life where I've had to literally just depend on him. Never, because I'm all, you know, it's always, even though we shouldn't, but we always have a way of just manipulating things and kind of, you know, making things happen for ourselves. And so this is the first time that I'm really in a position to where I have to depend on him and him alone. And guess what? He provides provision to where he gives vision. So if he's giving me this vision to come here, he's going to provide as he's been doing. He's going to continue to do that. And so this has been a big test for me to just let go of having control over my finances. And that's the biggest test for me in this moment, of having that control, of being able to manipulate and make my own money. When I tell y'all that he closed every single door for me financially before I made the decision to come to Africa. I mean, I was coming anyway. It wasn't like he had to do that, because I had already made up my mind that I was going. He gave me this word. I prayed about it. I fasted about it. I was in solitude about it. And I knew that without a shadow of a doubt in my mind that he was leading me to come here. So it wasn't like he had to, do anything extra, because I was already being obedient to what he told me to do. But even in that, he closed every single door before I came here. I had a daycare before I came here. I put in paperwork to close down my daycare because I had it registered as an LLC. And I wanted to change that registry and re-register it as a corporation. And so I had to submit paperwork in order to demolish the LLC so then I could go and open up a corporation. And so I put in the paperwork. Months had gone by. I was calling them. They was, oh, we're behind. We're backed up. We're going to get to it. And I just gave up because I was just like, okay, whatever. I'll just keep the LLC and just, work under that for now. And it wasn't until a week before I was leaving to move to Africa that I received the demolition of my LLC through the mail. And it had been months that I had been waiting for this paperwork to come. Months. A week before I left. And it's crazy because in that moment I was considering, even though I made the decision to come here, I was considering, you know what, maybe I should stay and, do this daycare. I prayed about it. Father, what should I do? I was starting to get like some, more calls for more kids to come through the door. And so it was like, that testing, you're going to listen to the word or you going to go with what you want to do. And so it was that moment of testing for me. And I was just like, oh man, it seems like things is like really starting to pick up here for this daycare. Maybe I'm making the wrong decision. I think I should stay. And boom, through the mail. I opened the mailbox one day and there was the paperwork demolishing my LLC. Prayer answered. I prayed, should I stay? The Father said, no, closed door. Boom, LLC dissolved, move. And then another incident that happened right before, again, at this point, it was about a matter of days before I was leaving to come here. And I realized that because I had a CNA certification in the States, and I realized that my CNA certification hadn't been renewed, but it should have because I was working. I had a job, like what's going on? And so when I looked on the registry, I realized that CNA certification had lapsed. I was like, oh my gosh, like, listen, let me tell y'all, when that is quick money, that CNA certification is like crack money. Like you can easily so quick make some money. It's just that easy. You can go anywhere. It should never be a reason why you ever broke if you have a CNA certification, because it's just always a way to make quick money. And so I always maintain my certification because it's quick money. So when I realized that the CNA certification had lapsed, I was like panicking. Oh my gosh, what is going on? Who dropped the ball? Now I'm calling old jobs I don't work at. Somebody got to resolve this. Somebody has to resolve this thing right now. I need this certification. And in a moment of me going back and forth, calling around this job, calling around that job, the Father spoke into my spirit and said, be still, stop. Stop. He said, let it go. Let it go. Do you know how hard that was for me to do? Like I said, that is my bread and butter when I need it. It's always something to fall back on when I need it. And I'm always a firm believer that you should always have things to fall back on, credentials or whatever. You should always have something that you can fall back on. That's always been my philosophy. And so when the Father challenged that, I was just like, are you serious? Let it go. It wasn't all that hard for me to obtain, but, you know, I honor, like, really honor that CNA certification. And when I tell y'all, to this day, it still kind of hurts a little bit at the fact that he told me to let that thing go. I've given up and just said, okay, Father, you let your will be done. But it doesn't stop me from thinking about it from time to time. Like, are you sure, Melody? You really let that go? Are you sure? And, you know, then comes the devil, because he sees I'm wrestling with that. So, of course, he's going to come in and be like, you sure? You really letting this CNA go? You sure? This your final decision? Because I think you might need to get back on that phone and start fighting for this thing. I feel like you shouldn't let this thing go. And the Father's saying in the background, let it go. Stop thinking about it. Let it go. Because where I'm taking you, you're never going to need a CNA again. Where I'm taking you, you're never going to have to worry about where your next amount of money is coming from again. Where I'm taking you is a land of abundance. Where I'm taking you is a land of prosperity. Holding on to that CNA certification was keeping you in a mindset of poverty. Because although you were striving for greatness, you didn't see greatness because you was holding on to a little amount of money. A small, very small amount of money compared to what I am going to give you. If you just be obedient, if you just stand still, if you just go where I'm telling you to go, if you just do what I'm telling you to do, the abundance that is going to flow into your life. You're never going to have to worry. You won't even think about a CNA. In fact, where I'm taking you, CNA doesn't even have no place in your life anymore. Nothing that you are doing from this point forward is going to require you to have a CNA certification. In fact, I don't want you attached to this land at all anymore. When I tell you everything lapsed, my daycare license, even that, I had to write the lady right before, you know, I left. She started just randomly trying to pop up and do home visits. Because when you have a daycare, they have to, you know, the state comes and they do visits to make sure that, you know, your daycare is running up to code and all that good stuff. And so just out of nowhere, you know, and I didn't even have my certification all that long. It was only about 2 months at the time. And she was trying to do visits already. I'm like, well, dang, I just got a license. But I had to end up writing her and telling her I have to close the daycare down and, you know, terminate my license because I'm moving to another country. So he shut that down. He shut down my daycare license. He closed down my daycare altogether because I no longer had an LLC. He terminated my CNA certification. He terminated my drug and alcohol license because it's been so many years, and you know, every couple of years you have to renew. I didn't renew. Everything attached to the United States of America, he literally was closing every door in my face. In my face. So, with a great promise, guys, comes a great sacrifice. And the question is, not if, but what are you willing to sacrifice for the sake of the Father's kingdom? What are you willing to lay down in order to pick up? And it's going to be in somebody, it's going to either be in heaven or hell. Somebody's kingdom you're going to sacrifice. So what are you willing to sacrifice? So that's the word for today, y'all. I will see y'all on the next video. If you have not, make sure that you like, share, and comment. Let me know what your thoughts are for today's video, and I will see y'all soon.